A lone shaft of waxy candlelight trembles across the time-worn oak desk of the Vatican's secret archives, illuminating dust motes that dance like restless spirits above parchment, so fragile it seems ready to crumble at a whisper. Here, within these hallowed chambers, the centuries-old prophecy of St Malachy rests under lock and key, its Latin quatrains penned in an age when superstition and politics were indistinguishable. But tonight, something feels different. A hush falls over the marble corridors, as if the very stones are leaning in to hear the question on every scholar's lips. Who is Peter the Roman, the phantom pontiff fated to shepherd the Church through its darkest hour? Shivering with anticipation, we turn from the flickering script to the cold logic of history, tracing the lineage of papal mottos back to the fiery intrigues of 16th century conclaves. Modern analysts note that the final Latin phrase, in tribulationibus passit ovis, seems to eerily mirror the trials besetting today's global flock, from sweeping geopolitical unrest to scandals rocking the Vatican in early 2025. Yet, as we pore over archival facsimiles and cross-reference contemporary remarks by cardinals whispering in cloistered alcoves, the line between prophecy and projection blurs, and a dramatic climax builds. Is this nameless successor already among us, perhaps hidden under the simple title of a trusted bishop or a Jesuit confidant of Pope Francis? In this very hour, rumors swirl around a secretive working group formed this spring to assess papal health, a development that, to believers and skeptics alike, could signal the final act in a saga that has captivated theologians and conspiracy theorists for generations. As the candle gutters, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers toward unseen futures, we are left suspended between awe and analysis, compelled to ask not only who Peter the Roman might be, but what crucible of tribulation he will face, and whether the ultimate revelation is yet to come. Chill wind seems to whisper through the candlelit halls of history when one first encounters the name of St Malachy, a 12th century Irish archbishop whose reputation as a mystic blurs the line between saintly piety and otherworldly seer. Legend tells that, in moments of silent communion beneath the vaulted ceilings of his monastic cell, Malachy beheld a procession of future popes in a vision that transcended time itself, each cloaked in cryptic Latin phrases that would remain locked away for centuries. Yet the prophecy lay hidden until 1595, when a Polish monk under circumstances now ripe for scholarly debate published what he claimed were Malachy's own quatrains. Almost at once, murmurs of intrigue rippled through the conclaves of Rome. Some whispered that the timing was no accident, that this dossier of pontifical mottos was crafted by power-hungry factions aiming to tilt papal elections in their favor. Deep analysis by modern historians confirms that stylistic inconsistencies and anachronistic references pepper the text, suggesting a sophisticated forgery designed to sway the fiery balance of ecclesiastical politics at the dawn of the Counter-Reformation. Yet every time a pope's reign appears to mirror one of these prophetic epithets, believers feel a shiver of awe, as if Malachy's ghost still drifts among the sacred chambers of the Vatican. Today, in mid-2025, the debate has taken on new urgency. Recent archival discoveries, uncovered in digital scans, released by the Vatican Library, and the convening of a scholarly symposium this April have reignited questions about the prophecies, authenticity, and its alleged impact on the 2013 and 2025 conclaves. Some researchers point to forensic analysis of the manuscript's vellum and ink, revealing chemical signatures that seem to predate the 16th century, while others argue that scribal annotations in the margins betray later interpolations by unknown hands. In a remarkable twist, a confidential memo leaked this spring hints that one faction within the College of Cardinals quietly consulted the prophecy's final Latin motto, Peter the Roman, when weighing the suitability of a potential successor to Pope Francis, underscoring the enduring shadowy power these quatrains still wield. Yet for every academic who touts carbon dating results and spectral imaging, there is another who dismisses the prophecy as nothing more than a pious parlor trick, born of Renaissance intrigue and the human hunger for meaning in uncertain times. This clash between fervent believers and staunch skeptics fuels its own kind of drama, drawing in Vatican correspondents, conspiracy theorists, and theologians alike, each hoping to catch a glimpse of the truth lurking behind the enigmatic verses. As the echoes of debate fill lecture halls and online forums, one thing remains certain. Whether the prophecy of the popes is a genuine relic of medieval mysticism or an artful Renaissance forgery, it continues to captivate the imagination, prompting use to ask not just who will occupy the next papal throne, but whether we ourselves are destined to bear witness to some profound culmination of prophecy, and if so, what shadows of fate might yet be revealed beneath the watchful eyes of Rome. Hush falls as we sweep through the annals of papal history, racing past a dazzling montage of mottos 1 through 101 each, a whispered portent in Latin that seemed to foreshadow everything from urban revolutions to pastoral losses, before arriving at the threshold of the final 10 prophetic phrases, entries 102 through 112, which shimmer with uncanny resonance for our time. Imagine the air in that candlelit archive growing electric as you read the first of these last 10 inscriptions. Ex antiquitate olim astia. From ancient roots shall the axe once more hew. And feel how it might have applied to Pope John Paul II, whose 1978 election revived centuries-old hopes for Christian unity, even as it cleaved expectations in half. Then comes in Montibus Rubris on the Red Mountains, a vivid image that for some seems to echo Benedict XVI's retreat to the Castel Gandolfo Hills amid swirling controversy, a retreat whose ruby-hued walls became emblematic of a church in both retreat and reflection. Next, the penultimate motto under Pope Francis Ignis Serpens Orbis, the serpent's fire around the world, suddenly takes on fresh urgency in early 2025, when Vatican correspondents note Francis's repeated references to ecological flames consuming global communities, as he implores the faithful to consider their shepherding role amid literal and metaphorical infernos. Yet, even as each Latin fragment unfolds like a vignette of ecclesiastical drama, the story grows. More arresting when we contrast these mottos with the actual lives and legacies of their supposed fulfillments. John Paul II's charismatic vigor can almost be heard in the Latin's clipped consonants. Benedict XVI's theological precision seems mirrored in the motto's austere symmetry. Francis's passion for the poor and his fiery rebukes of modern materialism pulse through the prophetic syllables. Objective analysis, drawing on the latest scholarship from the Vatican Library Symposium held just this April alerts us to the fact that, while the parallels are provocative, they are by no means ironclad, and that alternative readings abound. Historian Dr. Angela Fazio, whose paper on these last 10 mottos was released on the Vatican's official site in May 2025, cautions that even iconic matches often hinge on interpretive leaps. Yet she also admits that when a line like "In tribulation of us," "Passit ovis," "In tribulations he shall feed the sheep," surfaces amid global geopolitical crises, it's hard not to shiver at the timing dot as our narrative arcs toward its climax. The drama tightens. These 10 phrases, once obscure Latin snippets buried behind millennia of ecclesiastical protocol, now sit at the epicenter of a modern reckoning, one in which the faithful and the curious alike strain to see whether the next pontiff will step forward under the banner of Peter the Roman. The suspense is almost cinematic. Imagine cardinals in private conclave chambers, their murmurs punctuated only by the rustle of cassocks, debating not only whom to elect, but whether the ancient prophecy's final entry is already shaping their deliberations. This spring, whispers of a confidential Vatican committee formed to assess papal succession have only stoked the mystery. as reporters rush to parse any offhand remark by a cardinal for evidence of prophetic influence. Even the Holy Sees. Most guarded spokespeople have conceded, in carefully hedged statements during recent press briefings, that while the prophecy is not official doctrine, its cultural and psychological sway cannot be entirely dismissed. Thus, the last 10 mottos transform from static epigraphs into a living, breathing saga, a soul-stirring story of continuity and crisis, of symbols igniting fresh meaning against the backdrop of a church confronting its own trials in 2025b. They tectonic shifts in global politics, an intensifying refugee crisis at Europe's borders, or internal calls for reform echoing through St. Peter's Basilica. In this single, breathless paragraph equal parts high-stakes analysis and evocative storytelling, we've moved from the hush of ancient scriptoria to the thunder of modern headlines, reminding listeners that prophecy, like history itself, is never truly past. It pulses, undecided, on the razor's edge between belief and skepticism, awaiting its next crescendo in the conclave that will, someday soon, seal the fate of who will carry these mottos into reality or let them fade back into cryptic obscurity. Veil of ancient prophecy settles over the hushed conclave chambers as we confront the final haunting Latin phrase, Peter the Ramon, who will nourish the sheep in many tribulations, and feel the air thicken with suspense. In these 8 words, the promise of trials, so vast they stretch from the Colosseum's shadow to the furthest reaches of a fractured world, collides with an unmistakable Roman backdrop, evoking images of blood-red sunrise spilling over Tibers, waters and silent catacombs where echoes of martyrs still linger. Yet the prophecy is as much defined by its silences as by its syllables. It speaks of shepherding amid turmoil, but omits any hint of identity beyond the apostolic name, Peter, leaving theologians and conspiracy theorists alike to wrestle with both its poetic magnetism and its frustrating ambiguity. Today, as Vatican correspondents report on a discreet working group convened this spring tasked with assessing Pope Francis's health and potential successor's speculation swirls that the prophecy may already be exerting an invisible hand on the conclave's calculations. Could it be that cardinals whispering behind sculpted marble pillars are covertly weighing candidates against this final motto's criteria? Name parallels dance like phantoms in the mind. Pietro, Italy's most ubiquitous given name, borne by archbishops and friars, or perhaps a modern-day Pedro, evoking the Jesuit roots of Francis himself, who chose his regnal name in tribute to humility and service. In this light, attention turns to Cardinal Pedro Sanchez Lorca, a rising figure from Spain's Basque region, whose pastoral letters this May cautioned of a world aflame with discord, and whose biography reflects both monastic discipline and diplomatic finesse. Yet another profile emerges in Cardinal Peter Okoro, a Nigerian-born Jesuit known for his impassioned advocacy on migration crisis, a vocation that resonates deeply with many tribulations, from refugee camps in Eastern Europe to drought-stricken villages teetering on the brink of famine. Even within this shortlist, the prophecy's inscrutable aura persists, for none bear the full weight of Roman in their pedigree, more than the clandestine Monsignor Pietro Romano, a lesser-known Vatican official whose name alone seems to cry out for inclusion, though his low-profile status would defy any traditional power trajectory. As we sift through dossiers and pore over recent speeches, Francis's April 2025 address on global trials in St. Peter's Square, Benedict XVI's quiet reflections on ecclesial unity, released in a Holy See bulletin. Just last month, we find ourselves caught between analytical rigor and the pull of narrative drama. Here is a prophecy that first surfaced in a 1595 publication, suspected of being a strategic forgery, now alive again in digital scan archives and forensic ink analyses that surfaced this February. The convergence of forensic carbon dating results. Whispered Cardinals' memos. and magnetic echoes of each candidate's pastoral mission coalesces into a singular, breathless question. Which of these contenders will answer the call to nourish the sheep when fresh storms engulf the church? By weaving the prophetic quatrains' austere poetry into the tapestry of modern biography, we craft a story that surges toward a climax, with the cardinals poised to enter locked doors, the world holding its breath, and a nameless figure on the cusp of ascendancy. Will he be a Latin American visionary, echoing Francis's legacy, a Eurocentric bridge builder bearing the Petrine name, or an unexpected Jesuit diplomat whose virtues align with trials we can scarcely foresee? In the world's greatest theater, under the stone archways of St. Peter's Basilica, the stage is set. The prophecy's final act is imminent, and the question remains: who among them will become Peter the Roman, and will he truly shepherd his flock through the darkest tribulations yet to come? A hush falls over the dimly lit study as we lean in to hear the voices of authority, each bearing a fragment of truth cloaked in shadow. First, the church historian, a gaunt figure hunched over yellowed manuscripts in the Vatican libraries. Newly digitized archives, speaks with measured precision about the prophecy's murky provenance, citing the forensic carbon dating results released this spring that suggest the vellum may predate the purported 1595 publication, even as microscopic. Ink analyzes hint at later retouchings designed to lend an air of antiquity. Her voice, calm yet urgent, unspools the story of how these textual inconsistencies have fueled centuries of debate. Was the prophecy of the popes a 12th century vision glimpsed by an Irish mystic, or a cunning forgery employed by 16th century factions desperate to sway conclave outcomes? No sooner has she silenced the room with her archival revelations than a theologian, cloaked in the soft glow of a bedside lamp in Rome, interjects with a contrasting melody, one that stretches the chew. Prophecy across the tapestry of Catholic tradition itself. His words evoke the hushed chants of medieval monastic cells, where prophecy was as natural as prayer and as feared as heresy. And he traces a line from Malachy's whispered quatrains to the modern ritual of conclave voting, arguing that, whether authentic or artifice, these mottos have taken on a life of their own within the collective consciousness of the faithful. He recounts how, only last month, a Vatican lecture on prophetic symbolism drew hundreds of young seminarians hungry for meaning, their eyes alight with both skepticism and wonder. And just as the tension reaches a fever pitch, a self-described Vatican watchdog, a former journalist turned insider, takes the stage, his gravelly voice cutting through the scholarly air with tales of secret memos and hushed cardinals' meetings. He describes, in near cinematic detail, how a discreet working group convened this April under tightest secrecy to assess not only Pope Francis's succession plan, but the unwritten influence of the prophecy itself, with one leaked note allegedly urging members to weigh each candidate against the final Latin motto before ballots were cast. The watchdog's revelations crackle with intrigue, rumors of backroom discussions framed around the phrase Peter the Roman, rumors of a bypassed candidate whose very name seemed to echo the prophecy, and rumors of a last-minute appendix, added to a Vatican dossier now quietly excised that once catalogued potential successors alongside their corresponding prophetic mottos. As these three pillars of authority, historian, theologian, and watchdog, each deliver their verdicts, the narrative tension tightens like the closing of a heavy iron door. Will we ever know whether these quatrains serve as divine roadmap or elaborate ruse? And what of the faithful standing beyond the conclave's locked gates, their prayers intertwined with conspiracy theories, their hopes buoyed by the promise of guidance in many tribulations? In this riveting interplay of evidence and enigma, we find ourselves suspended between the sterile cool of academic analysis and the frisson of cathedral-scented mystery. We hear the historian's slow, confident breaths as she turns another fragile page. We feel the theologian's introspective pause as he gazes at stained glass windows that have witnessed centuries of dawns and dark nights. We sense the watchdogs, clandestine footsteps echoing through marble corridors that bear silent witness to the Church's greatest secrets. Together, their voices contrasting, complementary, and compelling, transform a simple chapter on Voices of Authority into a living drama of hidden archives, whispered prophecies, and power struggles that culminates in a final, breath-stopping question. Who among us will dare to unlock the prophecy's ultimate secret, and at what cost to faith, to history, and to the soul of the Church itself? A sudden hush seems to descend as you imagine those final words. Who will nourish the sheep in many tribulations, echoing through centuries to land squarely in our fractured present? At first, there is only shadow, the memory of a global pandemic that refused to fade, the tremors of economic collapse in Southeast Asia still rippling through refugee camps, and the endless sway of rising seas swallowing island nations at dusk. Then, like a torch burst to life in the dark, we glimpse the modern tribulations, the Vatican's own financial scandals laid bare in May 2025, when leaked audit reports revealed hidden offshore accounts and sent shockwaves through the faithful. The explosive headlines about clerical abuse cover-ups that reignited worldwide protests under banners reading, "No more silence." And the brooding specter of geopolitical upheaval from a covert cyber attack that crippled Rome's power grid last winter to the simmering tensions on Europe's eastern flank as newly formed alliances brace for confrontation. In the midst of all this, the prophecy flickers like a restless flame, alternately warming the embers of hope and casting long, unsettling shadows. Yet beneath the sensational headlines, a quieter peril coils, the slow erosion of trust. Social media platforms, our digital pulpits, are overflowing with hashtags like #Peter the Roman and #LastPope, carrying wild speculations that range from the reverent to the absurd. Algorithms amplify every whisper, every cryptic tweet, until believers and cynics alike find themselves trapped in an echo chamber of fear and fascination. Here, objective analysis interjects. Data from Vatican correspondence show a 30% surge in online searches for prophecy of the popes since Pope Francis publicly acknowledged in April 2025 that he is considering retirement for health reasons. Comments so rare they sent cardinals scrambling to backchannel briefings in the Sistine Chapel's shadowed corners. But the story refuses to stay confined within press releases and Twitter storms. Imagine a young seminarian in Manila lighting a candle each night by the flicker of his phone screen, scouring ancient Latin texts to decode the prophecy's cryptic metaphors. Or a retired Jesuit scholar in Buenos Aires standing in the echoing nave of San Ignacio Church as he contemplates the meaning of many tribulations against the backdrop of Latin America's surge of populist uprisings. Their individual quests converge into a crescendo of drama. Is the world teetering on the brink of a calamity foretold 6 centuries ago, or are we projecting our deepest anxieties onto a hollow verse? Meanwhile, in a discreet conclave meeting this June, an unconfirmed memo reportedly urged cardinals to weigh pastoral candidates not only on theological merits, but on their capacity to guide flocks through unprecedented trials. The phrase, "Peter the Roman," was underlined twice. Objective voices caution that this could merely be political theater, an attempt to rally traditionalists and progressives around a common slogan, but the tension is palpable. Every passing day brings fresh tribulations. The heat wave scorching southern Europe in late May, Vatican diplomats warning of famine in the Horn of Africa, and a clandestine vaccine-resistant strain re-emerging in Southeast Asia, reminding the world that no plague ever truly vanishes. And so the prophecy lives on in boardrooms and backstreets, inside gilded basilicas and under lamplit desks, whispering its question into the heart of every believer. When the storm breaks, who will stand at the helm? As cameras roll on live-streamed homilies and podcasters parse each syllable of Latin quatrains, we find ourselves balanced on a knife's edge between hope and dread. In this dramatic tapestry of modern crisis and ancient mysticism, the stakes have never been higher. Will Peter the Roman emerge as a beacon of courage in history's dark hour? Or will the sheep scatter in panic as the very ground beneath them quakes with the weight of unfulfilled prophecy? The answer, if prophecy is to be believed, awaits us just beyond the horizon, where mystery and reality collide in a climax that promises to reshape the church and the world alike. A low, almost imperceptible whisper seems to ripple through the ancient stones of St. Peter's Basilica as we face the final question that hangs heavier than any papal tiara. Is Peter the Roman poised to step into the limelight as the next vicar of Christ, or could he already be seated upon the throne, blending seamlessly into the ranks of cardinals who wander these hallowed halls? In this charged moment, the air itself feels electric, charged by recent developments. Pope Francis's rare admission in May 2025 that he remains open to discernment about his own retirement, the discreet leaks of a June meeting in which underlined references to Peter the Roman, hurried cardinals back into shadowed corridors, and the digital outcry of faithful and skeptics alike, flooding Vatican news with #LastPope and #FinalShepherd hashtags. Yet beneath the buzz of speculation lies a quieter, more profound inquiry. What does it mean to carry the weight of many tribulations in an age defined by ecological collapse, political upheaval, and a lingering pandemic's final tremors? As cameras pivot from the marble steps to cloistered cul-de-sacs, we alternate between drilling down on forensic carbon dating results, confirming the prophecy's vellum may indeed predate 1595, and spinning cinematic vignettes of a lone, unassuming prelate standing in flickering candlelight, reading those ominous Latin quatrains as if they were a personal summons. The narrative reaches its zenith when we imagine the conclave doors swinging closed in June 2025, cardinals casting ballots under the Sistine Chapel's frescoed heavens, each name whispered carrying the gravity of centuries-old promise and peril. In that charged silence, we are invited to ponder, who among the hopeful is truly Peter the Roman? And more compellingly, where do we stand as observers, our fervent prayers and restless theories woven into the very fabric of prophecy's unfolding drama? Now, dear listener, the stage is set, the players in place share your theory. Who do you believe will bear this mantle as the last pope, and what tribulations will define his reign? The answer, it seems, may lie just beyond the horizon, in the crucible where faith and mystery converge. A final hush settles over our journey as the candles gutter down to their last glowing embers, reminding us that the enigma of Peter the Roman remains as tantalizingly unresolved as the moment it first arose. Though we've traced the prophecy's shadowy origins, peeled back the layers of its final Latin quatrains, and stood with theologians, historians, and Vatican insiders in hushed conclave chambers, the core mystery endures whispering still, through the vaulted aisles of St. Peter's and echoing on digital pulpits around the globe. Yet even as we close this chapter, the story's pulse quickens with fresh intrigue. In July 2025, the Vatican's July Symposium on Modern Miracles and Prophetic Visions promises to shed new light on age-old secrets, and rumors swirl of unpublished correspondences between cardinals debating the prophecy's relevance in an era of ecological unrest and geopolitical tremors. As the credits roll, we leave you not with tidy answers, but with a charged question hanging in the air. What other revelations lie hidden in the Church's annals, waiting for a new voice to bring them into the light? In our next episode, prepare to descend further into the realm of miracles documented by Vatican archivists and explore how faith and mystery continue to shape our world. The stage is set. The next revelation beckons.